We're looking at trade optimism building about China and the United States, talks scheduled for next week, and a possible NAFTA deal, minus Canada, with Mexico. Edward Lawrence following all of that, as he always does, with great aplomb in Washington, D.C. Edward.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah, this is a big day for talks here. Now, the Chinese Vice Minister of Commerce is coming to the United States next week. He's coming to D.C. to meet with Treasury officials. Now, this meeting comes right before the U.S. set to impose their next round of tariffs. That's the $16 billion worth of tariffs. The Chinese would like to see the U.S. back off that position. Now, other big trade news that's moving some markets. Now, NAFTA. We're very close to a breakthrough in NAFTA. The U.S. Representative Robert Lighthizer has said that. Also, the Mexico economy minister has said we are very close to a breakthrough. Still, no breakthrough as of yet, but there have been 4 full weeks of talks with the Mexican delegation. So, it's Friday. Is it breakthrough day?
It is one more day in a good effort to try to close these negotiations, but we still have pending issues, not many, but still relevant.
So no breakthrough again today. The sunset clause has not been addressed. The Mexican economy minister says that they talked about the rules of origin of a car. The U.S. would like to see 75% of a car made in North America to fall under NAFTA, up from 62.5%. The minister saying that they talked about the language of that portion today. He's going back to Mexico this afternoon, have some meetings next week, and we'll be right back here on Wednesday to hopefully break through with NAFTA talks. Back to you, Neil.
All right, Edward Lawrence, thank you very, very much. To Edward's point, if you don't think trade is going to be a dominant theme this election year, look no further than Wisconsin, of course, a state that depends vitally on it, and of course Harley-Davidson and the dust-up over that. A guy who's at the center of it all is a man who Democrats are hoping, well, for the 4th time, they'll get the charm and get rid of him. They've tried that hard. Think about it. When he was elected in 2010, and he started going after unions and excesses there, they called a recall vote, and he won that. Then he got reelected outright. Just a couple of years later for a 2nd term. They tried to stop that. They failed. They're at it again. He just captured and will be his party's nominee to protect that spot. But now he's on to see if he can make it the 3rd time the charm, technically the 4th time. With us now, exclusively, Wisconsin Republican Governor Scott Walker. Governor, welcome to you.
Hey, Neil, thanks for having me on again. You're right, the big government union bosses, the Washington-based special interests, even billionaires Tom Steyer, George Soros are out to get us. But just as we've done it before, the way we do that is with an army of grassroots volunteers. People who go all the time to scottwalker.com and join us up, and that'll help us out. People here in the state and across the country can help us make the difference.
Well, I know right now you're down in some of the polls, but again, if memory serves me right, Governor, you were down in every single poll, including that recall vote, where you were down double digits for a while and later won fairly handily. Having said that, though, do you ever get feeling like Custer, that your luck could run out here?
Well, you know, for us, if you do the right thing, I believe eventually if the truth gets out and you do the right thing, you'll ultimately end up a victor. And for us, that's what we did. When I set out on our first reforms, our polls were so low. I think Time Magazine called us Dead Man Walker. We came back there. We came back again in 2014. We're going to come back again here. I think when people see the difference between my opponent, Tony Evers, who's been a largely bought and paid for by the teachers union over the years in his role as a state superintendent, he embraces the policies that took the state back years ago to when unemployment was 9.3%. Today, we now have in this state 6 months in a row of sub 3% unemployment. That's the previous all-time low. More people are working here than ever before, more actual dollars in the schools than ever before.
Then why are you trailing him? Why are you trailing him? You're quite right. And by the way, we did place a call out to Tony Evers that not heard that back, but hope springs eternal, fair and balanced that we can get him on. But you do have some good economic numbers you've racked up here, and maybe it is the conundrum for Republicans in general, Governor, who go into this midterm with a lot of folks in your party fearing a blue wave, despite the good economy and the good markets, et cetera. Does it surprise you?
Well, you see a lot of anger and hatred on the left. My opponent's been involved with it, with saying things like that about me and about other Republicans, even the president. Unfortunately, anger is a pretty powerful motivator, and the way we've got to counter that is through optimism and organization. We've got a great story to tell. We got a great game plan. In fact, people can go see our latest plan at scottwalker.com. It's got all the details about what we plan to do to connect students to careers, to keep graduates in our state, to help keep seniors in our homes, and to help working families in our state. We can get out there and get that message out. We can win, but it's not going to be easy. There's no doubt about it. People say, hey, you won 3 times before. Things are humming along very well in the state. You're moving forward. But we're in a state where any Democrat starts out with about 48% of the vote. We've got to energize our base and at the same time win independents by probably a good 10 to 11 points, if not more.
Well, it is still early to your point here, but as the president indicated he'll campaign for you, do you want him to campaign for you?
Absolutely. The president, the vice president both called the other day. You know, we've got not only my race, part of the reason why I'm targeted is not just because they're out to get me. We've got Leah Vukmir, a dynamic state senator who's kind of like Joni Ernst, who I think can take on Tammy Baldwin, a senator who maybe has been good for New York or California, but not for Wisconsin. But there's a real race. It's a competitive race for the United States Senate. This is a battleground stake for the presidency. There's a lot of reasons why people, not only here in Wisconsin, but grassroots conservatives who have seen that our reforms work. We've shown that common sense conservative reforms can work. Again, that's why I'm encouraging people, go to scottwalker.com, help us join in this effort, get the message out, and it's not only good for taxpayers in Wisconsin, it'll be good for people all across America.
Let me ask you, I mentioned the president, governor, and of course he is open to folks who want, if you want to boycott Harley Davidson, a big employer in your state, go ahead. How do you feel about that?
Well, I want Harley Davidson to succeed. I'm a Harley rider myself. I'll be out in a few weeks for the 115th anniversary. I've got a 100th anniversary road king myself. So I want Harley Davidson to succeed here in Wisconsin. I don't want to boycott. But to me, the best way for them to succeed
ultimately... Have you told the president that sentiment is complicating your efforts here?
Well, ultimately, I've talked to the president, to Wilbur Ross, to the vice president, and others about the fact that the best way for them and other manufacturers and farmers to succeed in this state is to have happen what the president himself said at the G7. He said to the European Union and other officials, that is, get to no tariffs. If we have no tariffs in America, if we have no tariffs with our trading partners, Harley Davidson, manufacturers, farmers, and others all across my state,
you know what the president was saying, Governor? You know what the president was saying, that this move to announce some jobs overseas was already sort of baked into the proverbial cake. They were going to do this, and they used the excuse of those tariffs and a potential trade war to justify it. What did you think of that?
Well, I think in the end, again, that's why to me I'm about getting things solved, not just about commenting on it, but rather solutions. And to me, the best solution for Harley and any of the other companies and farmers in this state is let's get to no tariffs. The president brought it up at the G7. We latched on to that. I talked about that at the Select USA Summit when I was being interviewed by Wilbur Ross in front of thousands of people from around the world. Talked to the president, vice president about it. The best thing we could do is get to where the president himself said we should be. That is no tariffs. I was in South Korea last year on a trade mission in Seoul. I saw Harley Davidson dealerships because we've got a good trade deal that has moved down to a point where we're headed towards no tariffs as well.
I understand, sir, but what would it tell you, though, that let's say this tariff thing is resolved to everyone's liking and the company still moves people abroad? Would you feel like you were hosed here?
Oh, I think there's no doubt. I've talked to Harley officials over the years. I know them well. Again, I'm a Harley rider. I'm an enthusiast. Right. I know that if you don't have tariffs here, they not only make the bikes that they make to sell in America, which they currently do, no change there. They would make as many motorcycles as they could if there were no tariffs.
So you think they have already told you, Governor, they will stop this right midstream if this thing is resolved?
Well, again, that's been part of their long-term plan. For them, they want to make as many bikes as they can in America. They currently make them entirely for the American market.
I know, but they're going to make a bunch overseas now. You say if this stuff is done on the trade front, have they committed to you that they won't do that?
Oh, I think there's no doubt. For years they've signaled that if the price was right, and for their standpoint, if you don't have tariffs affecting trade policies around the world, of course they want to make these bikes here in America, and that's why we want them to be profitable. It's a lot cheaper to make them abroad.
See, that's what breeds the cynicism, Governor, that they're doing this and using this as an excuse. You don't buy that. You take them at their word that if the tariffs go away, they're not going to do this.
Absolutely. I think if you don't have tariffs, which is ultimately what the president's talking about, and I wish there'd been more discussion about that at the G7, because not only for Harley, for other manufacturers, for farmers and others, we don't have tariffs, we can compete with anyone in the world. Our workers, our farmers, our manufacturers, we can compete with anyone in the world. Just give us a level playing field, and that's what the president's ultimately talking about.
You know, Governor, when you were running for president, I mean, you were, very straightforward about, what you had orchestrated in Wisconsin. You didn't go very far, but the president engendered a great deal of, at the time, the candidate, a lot of criticism from those in the party, including your Minnesota neighbor, Tim Pawlenty, of course, who lost out on a shot to get a crack at his old job. And it came at a time where the president apparently still remembered Governor Pawlenty calling him unhinged. You avoided strong language like that, but do you think that it is simply better to be on good terms with this president than bad?
Well, I want to get things done for the people of my state. We just got an approval of a waiver a couple weeks ago, for example, that allows me to create our Wisconsin health care stability plan that will lower premiums, increase the number of choices, and improve health care for our farmers and small business owners who purchase health care on the individual market. Under Obamacare, their premiums have gone up 44%. I got my legislature, Democrats and Republicans alike, to go along with it, but I needed the administration to help us. The past administration under Obama didn't do things like that. This administration did, so I'm going to do what I can to fight for the people of the state of Wisconsin. And when I can have a good connection, not just to the president and the vice president, but to anyone in Washington who will be willing to help the people of my state, I'm obviously going to look to enhance that. And if on occasion I disagree with them, I'm going to disagree with them and stand up for the people of Wisconsin.
Governor, we're very close to a NAFTA deal, we are told, with Mexico, not necessarily with Canada. In fact, I was surprised to learn yesterday when they had that spray in the cabinet room, the president hasn't even been talking to the Canadians for some time. Does that concern you, that we might get half a NAFTA deal with Mexico, maybe not with Canada?
Well, Canada is our #1 trading partner in Wisconsin, as it is in many states. We want to have a good trading relationship with them. But this is a prime example of, even before all this talk about the recent tariffs, Canada, particularly in Quebec, put on price controls on what's called ultra-filtered milk. That in turn led to more than 50 Wisconsin dairy farmers being let loose from a company called Grassland. That's a good example where unfair trade practices are a detriment to farmers and manufacturers and workers in my state, and similarly in other states across the nation. We need a level playing field. We should get there. We're a good trading partner with Canada. They are with us. Let's just get to a level playing field, like the president said, in Canada at the G7.
The mood right now in Washington is always tense, and in a midterm election year, as you know, Governor, and the president has been catching fire for going after the media and going after those national security officials and prior administrations who've gone after him, going so far as to remove security clearances for former CIA Director Brennan. Others could follow. How do you feel about that?
Well, in the end, you talked about in the pretense of the midterms. I believe whether it's for governor, U.S. Senate, House seat in the House of Representatives, or even a local state lawmaker, voters are smart. Over the years, at least in our state, for sure they are. We've gone through, as you mentioned, a number of races where we got national attention as to what we're doing. They're going to look at the details. They're going to look at the facts. They're going to look at the comparison. In my case here in Wisconsin, they're going to look at the difference between going forward or taking a giant U-turn and going backwards. I don't want to go back to the days of double-digit tax increases, billion-dollar budget deficits, and record job loss. Those are the policies that my opponent, Tony Evers, embraces right now. I don't think people want to go back to that. Particularly, I got two sons, Matt and Alex, who are 24 and 23, both live and work in the state of Wisconsin. Years ago, Tonette, my wife, and I were worried back when things were bad, when unemployment was over 9%, that they were going to be able to grow up and not find a job, let alone a career. Today, there are literally more career opportunities in the state of Wisconsin than there are people unemployed to fill them. And that's why we want people to come. Check out our plan, scottwalker.com. Help us join in this fight. We can prevail against those national wins, but we've got to have help, and we've got to have it at the grassroots level.
You know, Governor, I'm just thinking, they're 23 and 24. I'm old enough to remember covering you in the earliest days when they were just getting ready for college. So I don't know who's aging.
Right.
I don't know who's aging faster here. But Governor, thank you very much for taking the time. We very much appreciate it. Be well.
Thanks, Dale. Great to be with you.
All right, Governor Scott Walker. All right, we have a lot more coming up here, including a Dow up about 54 points right now. The trade talks and optimism that we can resolve whatever impasses we're looking.